Hi, it's Jen from Shabby Fabrics. We recently introduced this beautiful redwork project for Christmas and designed right here at Shabby Fabrics. This is a block of the month you can sign up for. And I know when I was new to quilting, I was pretty much convinced every quilt was beyond me. And so many times I didn't sign up, I didn't participate because I'd convinced myself it was more than I could do at the time. I want to dispel that idea right now that even if you're a beginner, you can absolutely do this. And I wanted to show you the supporting video early so that you can see this is not difficult. I'll show you the process of how to do the embroidery as well on 3 different stitches on that one, as well as how do we make these half square triangles, how do we square up our block, and just the mechanics of how this goes together so you can see, oh, this is no problem. And you can jump in and grab your spot and join the fun, always limited. So if you're already in the spot, great job, welcome. And if you are like, what are you talking about? Of course, we'll have a link here. You can go check out that block of the month on our website and get signed up. Okay, so we have a kit coming to you each month, a small little kit where you get to do a portion of the quilt. I love that. Where it's not overwhelming, right? You're just like, oh, let me accomplish this month, and then next month you do it again. It's a nice way to be able to keep on progressing toward the goal of eventually having your quilt put together. But each month you'll get your background fabric, a bigger piece than you need, and our instructions will have you bringing that to about a 10 by 10. You really don't even need to cut anything down initially, because the first thing we're going to be doing, we like leaving our background bigger. That allows us to be able to use an embroidery hoop, which I recommend on the project. And then you can see here on our block 1 diagram, the solid line is what we'll ultimately be trimming this up to. So you have a lot of extra space around that to accommodate the hoop, and then you'll be able to trim that down later. So one of the first things we like to do, grab our light box. This is the sequence. The light box goes down first. This is the wafer 1. Along with your diagram, and then of course your background fabric. And you can see now, you can see this from the overhead camera, how easily you can see this. Let me shut that light off. You can see now, let me just move this to another spot. It's possible to see it, but you're straining your eyes to do it. I dragged my feet for years buying a light box, and when I finally made the decision, made the investment, I'm like, what took me so long? So if you are part of our program and you have not yet made that investment, I'd love to encourage you to do that. You're going to find so many things, other embroidery projects, anything you want to be able to trace something onto, you're going to be grabbing for the light box. You're never going to be disappointed you have this tool. So we'll grab our red friction pen. I love the red friction pen because it's erasable with heat. I've used micron pens before. They're permanent markers. This is temporary, and I always appreciate that. Every now and again, something shifts. I want to erase it away. You can do that with the friction pen. So as you can see, we just trace around wherever the buttons go. I might make a simple dot there just to indicate where that's going to happen later on. Even that is like not necessary, of course. But once the diagram is traced on, and you can see this outer line here, you can see how much extra fabric you have. Now the light goes off and we insert our embroidery hoop. You can use whatever size you like, if possible. I've been doing embroidery since I was little. I was like 7, 8 years old when I started doing this embroidery. If you can get a hoop that will hoop the entire shape without cutting into the shape, I've had little small hoops like 4 inches. It works, but you keep re-hooping the area you just stitched. This is a 7-inch hoop. We have those on the website, really affordable. You really want to do that if possible, where the entire area is hooped. Now these just squeeze together as this comes in, and so our area is nice and tight. Now we're going to get a close-up so you can see the stitches we'll be doing. Back stitch, just a little bit of French knots. We have that on one of our blocks. And then I'm going to show you something that's called a feather stitch. It's a stitch I haven't done that often, but it's really fun to do, so I want to make sure I'm showing you that as well. I will go ahead and grab my red embroidery floss that's in my kit, my Richard Hemming, and I have 2 strands of embroidery floss and I've tied a knot. So we'll get up close so you can get a good look at that. And I do want to mention that if you want to know more about embroidery and some other types of amazing stitching, be sure to pick up this book. You will have so many instances where you want to add a really cool stitch, or maybe you're left-handed. It's hard to watch people who are right-handed demonstrate something. This guide has instructions for both left and right-handed, so it's a really invaluable tool. All right, let's get up close and we'll teach you how to do our stitches for this block of the month. Okay, for the back stitch, we'll start with that one. If you have any trouble, by the way, threading your needle, grab the clover needle threader. It's great to have on hand. You can start the back stitch really anywhere you want. I've knotted the end, and we're just coming up and going down along the line, about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit more. The goal is just to split the line every single time. There it is. And then you move back toward yourself. And my theory has always been, maybe that's why they call it the back stitch, is you keep moving forward, but then you move back toward yourself. I'm going down, but then I'm moving back toward myself. It's a very simple stitch. It's very effective. And it's really the foundation, I would say, of nearly every embroidery project. Very, very simple. Oh, that one went a little bit shallow. That's okay. That's okay. I could have taken a little bit of a longer stitch, and that's okay. In the grand scheme of things, no one's noticing. You'll want to take shorter stitches the tighter the turns there. So, you know, you can kind of vary your stitch length depending on if you have a straightaway. Don't get too crazy, but on these tighter curves, you're going to need to make some shorter stitches. To tie off, just like we've done, if you've seen any of the other videos, we're just diving underneath the embroidery we just did with 2 knots, just for extra security. And that's all you need to do for a back stitch. The French knots, one of our second block actually has a little bit of French knots there. A really fun stitch. You come up. The 2 strands of embroidery floss move to the left. The needle's in the front, horizontal. And we're going to wrap twice around the needle. Once, twice. Pivot down, back into the location where you had come up from, and I'm trapping the floss on my left so it doesn't get tangled up. I'm waiting until I have to let it go to complete the knot. I'll do that one more time. We come up, floss to the left, needles in the front, 1, 2, pivot, back down where you came up. Notice I'm increasing the tension on the left, trapping the floss under my thumb, waiting until the very end to let go. That's how you complete a French knot. Now, on the feather stitch here, let's look at this one. We only have one block that has this on here. This stitch takes a little bit of practice, and if you're not careful, can get almost a little bit too unwielding, too wide. So it's kind of an intentional little small stitch just to add a little bit of texture. If you don't like this stitch, grab the Embroidery and Crazy Quilt book. There are so many stitches here. Maybe pick something else. That's how maybe you could customize that. But how you'll do this stitch, it's very narrow, it's very small. So if you ever have problem with tangles, Thread Magic is absolutely incredible. I have had so much luck, not just with embroidery floss, but pearl cotton. Anything that wants to bind up, Thread Magic is literally coats the thread and the tangling just stops. It's amazing. So be sure to pick up your Thread Magic if you have any tangling issues. Okay, you can see we've done the first stitch here. Now notice how it's off to the right and down just a touch. Now we go to the other side, trying to keep this stitch fairly small and compact. And you just kind of keep left, right, left, right. See that? I probably went a little wide on that one. I'm used to doing a little bit of a bigger stitch on with this one on other projects. Again, if this is a stitch you're uncomfortable with, you prefer something else, choose something else. That's how you know it's yours. When you're done making the stitch, you simply hop over the edge there, that kind of V area, and tie off. And you'll tie off on the back just the same. Twice, of course, as normal. Once you have all of your embroidery done, remember that back on our diagram, in fact, while we're still kind of nice and close up real quick, you're going to want to get all this embroidery done, turn this right side down, and you're pressing from the back side on a wool pressing mat so it doesn't mash down all your beautiful stitches. Getting everything nice and smooth. This is when we would now trim up our project using this tool. And you can absolutely, if you want to, at that point, I like to be very specific. I would literally bring my light box out again. I know we've got a thread back here. I'm just going to trim that out of the way. I'm going to show you how I would do this. We're going to assume I've already flipped it upside down and pressed it. All the stitching is there. Everything is beautiful. I would put this back under and I would just loosely mark these corners so that when I put my ruler down, I know where I'm shooting for, right? I know where I'm going. Because you realize this could be a lot of places, but now, move this out of the way, this is where our spinning mat comes into play. We love this. I'm going to put that right in those corners. Everything's beautiful, stitched and pressed out. Here, 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 and here. Remember I talked about the investment of a light box, a spinning mat. That's the next thing to be really looking at because there's just no replacement for the precision of being able to put a ruler down, never lifting your fabric up again and simply turning around it, never making an unsafe cut under your arm or back toward yourself ever. That's how you prepare the blocks. Now we'll talk about how to make our half square triangles. One of the things I love about quilts is when we get to do handwork and patchwork. So if you're like, I don't like doing half square triangles, that's all about to change. No problem. So in your kit, of course, you have these beautiful fabrics, and first thing we'll do is cutting them to 2.5 inches square. You know, Creative Grid has a ruler for everything. If you have a ruler to cut all this down, fantastic. If you don't, I'd grab maybe a couple fabrics at a time. Position the ruler. Then again, this is where that spinning mat is invaluable, right? Being able to not lift anything up, you're using the perfection of a ruler. It just sets you up for success. Speaking of patchwork, there are certain things that are just part of that. The 80-12 needle, a fresh needle, good thread, Aurifil is a great one, a fresh blade in the rotary cutter, all of those things. I'm going to bring the iron to full hot now. Half square triangles. Our favorite way to do those is make them a little bit upsize and be able to square them up. And that's what we're going to be doing today. So on the back side of our lighter colored cream, that is happening on every single one of our half square triangles. We've got some in the corner, but all of these, you have a choice. You can either draw a straight line, and placing that right side together with one of the colored squares, you now go to your sewing machine and seek the 1/4 inch away from that line. Or my favorite technique, once again, creative grid comes, they just solve problems, right? Or make our life more convenient, I should say. It's not even solving a problem, it's just making our life more convenient. They've come up with a tool that we can place on the diagonal, and we simply draw. This is my favorite. Why? Because I'm way more accurate sewing on a line than trying to find a 1/4 inch away from a line 10 days out of 10, right? Every single time I'm far more accurate to do that. However you want to do that, simply pin, either sew on the lines if you're using the seam guide, or if you're drawing the diagonal line, seeking a 1/4 inch away from that, and you'll be stitching that. You'll be doing that for all of your half square triangle units. And we've done one here. It looks like we drew on the dark side. That's fine. We can see that easily, and we sewed. Once that's done, we're going to cut on that diagonal, and we're going to press toward the dark. Half square triangles make 2 every single time, using this technique, I should say. There are other ways to make half square triangles. Some people cut them on bias ahead of time. I never do that because bias introduces, in my opinion, problems. Stretch, things that are not good when we're trying to be very stabilized in a 1/4 inch seam allowance situation. So I like this technique. I get 2 half square triangles done at the same time and no bias. There's a lot of good reasons to do that. But remember that I said these were oversized. Why? It gives you and I breathing room to be off. And I like that. I don't want to have to rely on perfect quilting because I'm not a perfect quilter. I like being able to have breathing room so that when my 1/4 inch isn't exactly a 1/4 inch, I'm still okay. What does that mean? It means now this is bigger than it needs to be. We're going to square this up to 2, and I'll show you right now, looking at the ruler, that we're bigger than 2 because we meant it. See how I'm over by about 1/8 of an inch? Call that opportunity. That's exactly what this is called, is an opportunity for you and I to now take this, see the diagonal line on the 45, and what I'm going to do is lay that right along that seam where I'm seeing just a little bit of the fabric poking out, just a little bit, because I want to square up around all 4 sides of this to make this exactly 2 inches, and you want to do that too. So hold steady, trim, trim. Now we know that these 2 sides are golden. They're done. But the other ones need to be trimmed. Simply switch your ruler. See our 2 here? Actually, this is the 1/2 inch, so I'm going to be right there. There's my line, and it's going right along my diagonal. I have 3 lines to confirm I'm exactly where I should be. Why am I using a bigger ruler? Why am I not using the 2.5 inch? Real estate. I want my hands away from that. I want more to hang on to. When you're using the 2.5 inch ruler, just this one, it's small. I don't have a lot of places to put my hand. Here I have a lot of places to create pressure, pushing down. We all know the back side of the creative grid rulers have a grip that once they're pushed down, you are not moving this ruler. As soon as you lift up that pressure, the ruler moves. It's an amazing system. If you have not already invested in creative grid rulers, be sure to do that. Well worth every penny you'll ever spend on these rulers. So this is a perfect 2-inch square that I'm not going to achieve without slightly oversizing and being able to square up. Does it take more time? Yes, but look at the quilt you're making. Think of all the time doing the hand embroidery. This is just another step in the process of getting a beautiful result. So once you have all of your half square triangles, you can see that now you're just laying them out in a pleasing arrangement. You've got squares in the corner, and you're simply sewing them in a row, sewing these together, and these together. Some pointers, seam guide. I love the seam guide. This is a really cool tool. This has increased the precision of my blocks exponentially. I'm working on one at home right now. And half the quilt was done without this and half is with this, and the quilt almost doesn't sync up because my blocks now actually measure the size they're supposed to with the guidelines. So if you're curious about this, be sure to check out that video, a great investment to increase your precision exponentially. So you can see, if you're a beginner, jump in, do not wait, grab your spot if you haven't already. Enjoy the journey of the lovely hand embroidery and the fun of making precise half square triangles. Thank you so much for being part of our block of the month. If you haven't already subscribed, be sure to do that. Hit the bell, get on the newsletter, let your friends know. This is the place to be for 2024 and beyond. There is so much to look forward to, and I can't wait to see you on a future video.